And what we do is we watch email for big senders. So we really just analyze all their data, let them know when they have a problem and what they need to do to fix it. Today, people spend a lot of time and energy with human beings doing that, so we're automating it. The machine does it all. It's quite a bit of data. We do about 1.5 billion messages a month now, and it's going to go probably to 10, 20, or 30. So a lot of our challenges have been scale. I've been a developer for 25 years. I did a lot of wireless and embedded. I did the first Bluetooth stack on a handheld long ago, and did Bluetooth wireless for a long time. And then when the cloud stuff started really coming around, I retooled and started doing cloud. Yeah, the embedded space is good, but it's very restrictive. You have to work for a Qualcomm or Nokia or something like that. So I want more flexibility. And as an entrepreneur, having to do something with hardware is horrible. No, so here's a general guideline with database. So NoSQL and things like that are great. MySQL is great, but once you get it beyond about 100 operations per second, that stuff breaks apart unless you're really, really good at tuning. And certainly when you get above 500, 600, 700 things a second, it's really broken apart. When we're busy, we'll do 15 or 20,000 things per second. So we couldn't do that. So what we have is we actually have a Hadoop stack, and we use something called HBase on top. So it's kind of like a database, think about it that way. But it's very structured and very ordered and stored in the way you want to retrieve it. So it's very fast. You can move things in really, really quickly. Companies like Facebook and Twitter, Facebook messaging is built on top of HBase, right? So you can do these things at kind of massive scale. Yeah. Difficult thing about tools like that is those are big tools with lots of sharp edges because there's 50 companies on the planet that really do much with them. So it's not like wrapped up and nice. It's still hard. That stuff gets easier all the time, but it's still hard. Yeah, this is possible. Like you guys, .NET. So it's virtually all C# now. We have a tiny bit of Node. We do a lot of email. So we actually have an email server as well. And the front end of the server, there's a really good open source Node library that we use because our front end is just really, really thin. But that's that. And then on the front end, it's like everyone, HTML and JavaScript. And we use GitHub. And I do pull requests, and I merge, and I review my own changes when I merge, and I do that 2 or 3 times a day. We saw this really good process. So when I have somebody come in to look at something, I can just plug them in. Have this really good process, and that also makes it really reliable. I ship code several times a day because I can just push it to the cloud, right? But by doing that, I'm making small changes that are easy to review, and I don't have to go through a massive cycle. When I'm working with other people, we have to more coalesce on a style so that that's the case. Because you don't want to waste a lot of time. One thing is true, I find that if I put my concepts of our business constructs into the code, like for us that's email and customers and transactions and servers and IP addresses and all the same stuff, if those are in the code, and then I structure and name things in a way that's very intuitive, in our case for me, but really for the team, then you write fewer bugs. Because when you go back to it 9 months later, you're not confused by the name or misled by the name. Our first filter is, if I hired you, 1, are you going to fit in with the team? 2, can I actually have you talk to customers and salespeople? And we're a small company, so all of us talk to customers. That's a good thing. I want my developers talking to customers, even when we get bigger. Because if you don't talk to the customer, you don't know what their pains are, what they want. You get kind of isolated from it. You just listen to the salespeople telling you what they want, but they're not always right. So that's a big filter. That eliminates probably half of the candidates we get, because there are a lot of people that they like to sit in a box and write code, but I couldn't have them talk to a developer or answer the phone or any of that stuff. And you can't have a very rich view of what you're building unless your intuition is that of the customer, right? Or the person that you're writing the software for. So that's our first filter for. There's 2 major pools of really early developers that I see. Let's say you wrote a program and it has a problem. And you're not sure why it's doing what it's doing, but you changed something and it fixed it. Problem's gone, right? people go two ways. One person goes, okay, next item on my list, and they move on. That's bad. You don't want to do that, right? The other person says, I have to understand what happened. I don't know what happened. It's fixed. Why did that? It made this change. It should not have fixed it, but it fixed it. Why did it fix it? You have to understand. So that's the way you want to go. If you're a developer and your intuition is to go the other way, that's bad, and you want to try to fix it. Because if you go the other way, you're not learning anything, right? Your value as a developer is not that you got that feature done. It's that you understood it well enough to know how to fix it. So the next time you come across it, it's going to take you 5 minutes, not 5 hours, right? And you're building up that intuition and that knowledge. But if you go the other way, you don't. You didn't learn anything. You learned that I did this thing and superstitiously somehow it fixed it. I don't know why it fixed it. That's bad. You gotta understand why it fixed it. So I think like early on, I looked for examples of like, what kind of developer are they? Because the people like over careers, the people that don't understand it, they just wallow in this like, I'm kind of okay, and they never get good. You can't get good. And then the other thing is being able to just kind of riff on ideas. So a lot of times our programming tests aren't really about programming tests. It's like, let's design something. Here's an idea. And then just be able to like work back and forth and like, how would we design that? Like, I don't care if you can remember syntax on it. I mean, when you go to interview, there are people that are gonna grill you on syntax. And if you miss it, they're not gonna hire you. I hate that. That's terrible. Like you have access to all the syntax and everything at your fingertips. Now, when you're interviewing, you have to get good. I mean, you have to get good where you can pass those tests too. But I don't think that's a very good way to interview people. It's much better to just see, like, how do you think about problems? Like, if I give you a problem that's, it could be anything. It could be like reversing a list or just any simple problem. Like, how do you think about it? How do you approach it? How do you start working on it? How would you solve that problem? That's the hard part. The syntax is the syntax. Like, you'll get that. It's really about problem solving, right? If I said that, wow, I think that was a bad way to do this thing. I don't want people to get upset. I wouldn't get upset if they said that to me, right? So I tend to flush that out in an interview. We do that with candidates. We'll usually have I like to find something to pick on. It's not the right word, but I like to do something that would be uncomfortable for the interviewee and see how they react. Some people get really defensive or upset, and I don't want that on my team. Just because I don't have time for it. On the front end is a good place as a junior engineer to get going. The only thing I'd say is that JavaScript is really weird, and you need to get cool with it. Like being good at JavaScript or bad at JavaScript is a big difference.
Yeah.
So you got to get cool with all the asynchronous nature of it, cool with like Knockout and Angular and all the basic frameworks, and you want to get cool with HTML5. But that's a good place to start because like, look, on the front end, if there's a bug, I can see it. I probably can't let you touch the back end too much because things go for me, they go really bad really fast. So what you want to always do, so the way to not get stuck in something, in tech you can get stuck, right? The way to not get stuck is like, well, what expands the value? If I get good at front end, what expands the value? Oh, the thing that expands the value is to be able to do that first layer of like REST API too. So I can do the front end, and then, we need something real quick that just goes and fetches some data from the database and returns it and displays it. Oh, I got that, I'll do it. So that you don't have to ask all the back-end team to do something small and contained. Right. Make sure that you can do all those edge things. You keep like pushing the edge out. That's how people, the only way they get to be full stack developers, they just start at the bottom or start at the top, right? And just kind of work their way through. And today really it's like front end, talking to REST APIs, which then they do whatever they do on the back end to talk to their data sources. And that stuff's not hard anymore. Not really. It's stuff to learn. It's stuff to get experience with, but it's not hard anymore. 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was actually kind of hard. It's not anymore. So like it's realistic to say I can do front end stuff. I can make some straightforward REST APIs that do what we need to do. I have a very like kind of practical view of Agile. So even when we've had bigger teams, I like a daily stand up. I think that's really good. It orients everyone, but we do it with everyone, like salespeople, everyone. So we just kind of know where everyone's at every day. We can kind of course correct. But then on the Agile side, like I don't like a lot of the formality of it and the religiousness of it. But the concept is good. Like we use like a Kanban board. We don't actually keep like detailed 300 item deep bug lists. We don't do that. Like if something's important, we fix it now. Like we have this zero tolerance policy. So if a bug comes up, you have to stop what you're doing and fix that. Like you don't work on the feature anymore. You go fix the problem. And if it's not important enough to fix, you just throw it away. You ignore it. Like you don't have to keep track of it anymore. Like you've already decided it's not important enough to stop what you're doing and fix. You don't have to keep track of it beyond that. The nice thing about that is we only really have like the things you're going to be doing over the next week or two. I mean, big picture, like I know what all the big bullets are for the next quarter, or 6 months, or 18 months even. But day to day, I mean, things are complicated. Like things change. So we're very just like tactical day to day. And most of these tasks that we have they're not a week long. Some of them are an hour, and some of them are a couple of days. But we try to cut it that way. And we just use like a simple Kanban board, and everyone kind of has their little task list. And that's that. And then as far as the Agile stuff goes, it's really about, like I do like these cycles of, we release every day, so it's kind of artificial to say we're gonna have a 2-week sprint and then ship features. We just ship every day. But we do say, hey, you know what? Our goal is to take the UI to the next level. Like it's a little slow, it's got these clunky things. So let's just like focus on UI stuff for the next 2 weeks and really move that forward. Or let's integrate a new partner. Like we integrate a bunch of data networks. So let's integrate a new data network and ship that and get it going. We do that kind of thing where we're all focused on a result, but there's 30 things that need to be done to make that result happen. Yeah, there's a bunch. One is that sometimes people want to show that they're smart, so they do things in complicated ways. That's not a good. I mean, in my mind, that's not a good coding strategy. Like I had this guy. I don't know if you guys know what templates are. You get a little feel of it in C# where you can make a function that you can pass a class type into, and you can operate on it, right? But in C and C++, there's templating, but it's much more. Malicious isn't the right word, but it's complicated. It's almost like the inverse of a class. And he loved them, and because they were confusing to everyone else, and it made him feel smart. I think that's why. My analysis, but it was unreadable to anyone else. It was terrible. So like there are places where it saves a lot of work, and that's great. But there are places where people just do it because that's what they like to do. So I think as a junior person, sometimes some people want to show that they're smart, so they'll do complicated things. But the better thing is to actually just solve the code in a simple way that's reliable and that other people can understand. Like everyone reading your code, like they weren't there when you thought about it and understood how to make it. So like getting it to where it's simple to read. This is something that experienced developers typically do better, but getting it where it's simple to read. So if I go and I read it, it's intuitive to me. I understand what it does. I understand why it does that. I'm not like asking you a question about every single line. Like, what is that? Like it might work, but it's like, what does that do? Like if I can't read it, I'm gonna write a bug when I go to edit it. That's bad. But that's something that kind of, that perspective kind of only comes with time sometimes. Like if you wrote a year of code and then went back to your own code, you'd be like, what was I doing? Like, I can't understand what this piece does, and I wrote it. That's terrible. Like I think I wrote it in a way that is not the best way. That's part of that is how you break up your functions and how you label things and how you name things. But part of it is structure. Like sometimes there's a really compact way to do something, but it's hard to understand. It's going to take me 2 minutes to sort it out versus if you wrote it a little bit bigger, sometimes it's really easy to understand. Writing code and thinking you're done that you haven't spent time making sure works well. So a lot of times junior people don't write many or any unit tests. Play with it for a while, like spend an hour like kicking it, and like punching it, twisting it. Make sure that you catch all these cases, because when you go to put something into the code base, if you're consistently writing stuff that has a bunch of edge case holes, like that makes everything around it kind of fall apart, right? You want to get people used to, when I get your code, it's reliable. Yeah, when I get your code, it's good too. So I trust it. When you go to put it in, I trust it. That's one thing. The other thing is not being good at source control so that you obliterate my changes when you merge your changes. That's really bad, right? That makes me like not let you touch source control anymore, which is bad. That's really common though, that people, they're not good at Git and they mess things up. I mean, not every company has a really good formal process for merges and stuff. When they do, this happens less, but if you have the keys and you can merge stuff to master, you got to be careful. That's the step where you have to be really careful, because you can introduce problems. You can have a different version of a file that I had. I made some changes and merged them, and you stepped on my changes, which causes lots of subtle problems. Those things are hard to find. Typically, don't find them for a week or two. Yeah, so I think for that the first job, I mean, you want to make sure that you get in a position where you're coding all the time. That's important. Right? I started off doing like 3/4 QA, 1/4 coding. And I ended up just having to go to the developers and go, hey, what thing do you need to do that you don't have time to work on? And I just do that at night. I mean, because you need the seat time, like you need coding time. So whatever job you get, you want to focus on something where you're going to get a lot of coding time. And you, as much as possible, you want to be able to do not just fix bugs. If you have to just fix bugs, that's fine. But as much as possible, you want to have a mix. But you want to pick something that somebody's going to be open to hiring somebody with 6, 8, 12 weeks experience, right? Front end can be one of those things, right? If you really like it and you can, exhibit some competency, that can be one of those things. Like, desktop or server code on the back end in .NET, like I like that you guys are doing .NET, because there's a bunch of big companies in town that just need an ever-increasing supply of developers that do .NET. So you want to find one of those teams that they need a junior person to do whatever it is that they need to do, right? So, but the way you're going to interview probably is different. So, like if I was going to focus on the front end stuff, I'd focus on, I can talk to your customers and do customer development interviews, and I can talk to your sales team and understand what they know, and your marketing team. Like I can collect all this information from these people, and I can bring that to the team. If you haven't done it already, like I have that ability to do that, and I can code your front end, right? And here's competency in JavaScript. Oh, and I know a little bit about REST APIs too. I'm starting to do some work there. So you kind of show this competency and enthusiasm for it, right? So you really have to have, what you guys lack in coding, like time, make up for in like, I'm personable. I can talk to everybody on your team. You're gonna have a fun time having me around. I'm really excited about this. I'm really motivated by technology. I love this kind of stuff. That goes a long way, right? And I'm smart and I can, talk to you and we can understand each other. That goes a long way. But I would definitely pick a focus, be it front end or be it desktop apps or back end apps or whatever it is. You can have multiple focuses. Like you can go, okay, like I'm preparing myself for this kind of job, but you know what? There's this other kind of job too, and you just have 2 different resumes for 2 different types of things, and you apply for both. It's the same it's the same skills. You just like focus it a different way. If your resume was focused on front end stuff and you apply for a back end job, like it doesn't make sense, right? It kind of don't apply for everything the same way, right? Be really enthusiastic about the thing that you're applying for. Know what that job is and what they're looking for, and just be like really excited about it. The other thing I think you guys are starting off with .NET, so this will be less of an issue. When we're interviewing people that are like Ruby or whatever, a lot of those guys are like attracted to whatever the like latest language is, and they keep jumping from one thing to the next. That's also scary as a hiring person. I don't want that. Like I want somebody that's gonna like focus on the technology I need. Also, research the companies that you're gonna apply for. You're halfway through now. I would focus on, I'm gonna try front end as my primary or back end as my primary, whatever it's gonna be. And then as you start figuring out these companies, like know who the company is, know what they do, know their products, know their problems. People like that a lot. If you know, I'm going to apply to Intuit, and I'm going to apply in the group that does X, Y, Z. Ask them about it. Like, talk to them about like, what's your job like? What challenges do your team have? Like, you guys, some of the questions you're asking, do you guys do Agile? Like, what do you do? Be interested. LinkedIn is important because you need to be on LinkedIn. When you interview somewhere, if it goes well, you should try to connect with that person on LinkedIn. You need to build your network. You should connect with each other on LinkedIn. You should connect with me on LinkedIn, right? Anybody that comes in here and talks to you that you meet in person, connect with them, or at least attempt to. If they say no, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine. But try. But the good pattern with LinkedIn generally is connect with people you've met. Okay? Could be that you just met them on the phone, but connect with people you've met. Diligently connect with all the people you've met. I want to see, generally, that you have 100 connections. If I see that you have 5 connections, that's bad. And the reason it's bad is I don't think you're trying on that social side. Now, some people won't care, but that's difficult. You want to get recommendations from your school, from your peers, from people you've worked for. The first time when you guys go and work and have a job, after 3, 4, 5 months, ask your boss to write a recommendation, right? That stuff helps a lot. You'll start getting people that will like validate your skills on LinkedIn. It helps. You can list your skills on LinkedIn. It forces you to write a version of your resume in that way. That's really, really helpful. Have an email address. It's not something weird. Lock your Facebook stuff down if you don't want people looking at it. They will.
Origin Code Academy, changing lives in 12 short weeks. New classes starting soon.